Hello and welcome to the Pitcast for 2022 by the Pit Crew Online. From the fans, for the fans. The Formula One season gets underway with the first race from the 18th to the 20th of March. So we thought we'd have a quick preview ahead of the season. I'm your host, Jess, your resident Formula One editor at the Pit Crew Online. And here to talk all things F1 with us is our editor-in-chief, Simon. Hi, Simon. How are you? It's good to have you back.
Jess. Yay, back at last.
We also have with us contributor and opinion columnist, Dimitris. How are you today? It's good to have you on again.
It's been a hectic day, but it's really good to be here and so much fun to talk about F1 with knowledgeable people.
Good, yes. Knowledge is one thing that we do have. Sort of. Sort of. So the F1 season is upon us. We have new regulations, a new defending champion. But let's start with testing, seeing as that is currently underway as we record this. We're on day 2 of Bahrain at the moment. So it was rumoured that Ferrari were going to have the fastest car going into this year. And we can't always take pre-season testing times as gospel. But how do you guys think they fared so far?
Well, they look good, but looks can be deceiving, as we know from previous seasons. This could all be fluff. This could all be to entice new sponsors or to please sponsors. They could be running very light on fuel. We just don't know. But the car looks absolutely stunning. The scoop design along the sides is very different. And there's something about that Ferrari red that just does something for you, doesn't it? It gets the heart beating. It's what Formula One is about. You know, Formula One's an entity, but without Ferrari, it's not really there. We all want to see Ferrari do well. And hopefully, Carlos and Charles will do well. I mean, as you say, they've been fastest. Personally, I was a bit surprised about that. I know everyone was saying they were going to be fastest, but I thought the Red Bull and Mercedes would also want to show a bit. Time will tell. There's another day tomorrow.
Yeah, honestly, I think that Ferrari has taken aback a few people, and they had the most time on CFD and the wind channel due to the fact that they finished P6 in 2020 and P3 in 2021. So most time than Mercedes and Red Bull for sure, even McLaren. You have to make good use of that extra time you have with those tools. I think they have done so, and it's really encouraging to see. Obviously, what Simon says, we're not really sure if they are, turning the engine down a bit, or if they are high or low on fuel. Presumably Mercedes is very high on fuel, for example. But it's positive that the Barcelona test went pretty okay for them. They were really reliable, covered the most mileage of everyone. And the Bahrain test, as of now, seems to be equally impressive for them. And obviously the car looks really stable. So that's a good start for the season. Either they are quick or not, we will see.
Yeah, they seem to be the only team that I can work out so far that have been very reliable, as you say. And I love the new cars. They just look so curvy and sexy. I don't know. I look at them all the time and I just love them. Anyway, funny that you mentioned the side pods though, Simon, because that has been a massive debate with the new launch of the cars, particularly as Mercedes have come with their very slimmed down, basically non-existent side pods to Bahrain. It's quite interesting seeing what they've done and how each team's interpreted the new rules. What do we think so far to the very slimmed down side pods of Mercedes?
Dimitri's going to take that. Are you going to take that first?
Yeah, because I have so many thoughts about that. You know what? Okay, it seems radical enough. It seems innovative enough. I'm fine with it. It's legal. Even Christian Horner said so. After all, if Christian says it's legal, it is legal. So no one's going to protest that. No one's going to argue with that. But I just don't see it as much of a game changer, because the focal point of these new regulations is the ground effect, is the floor. So how you maximize the airflow from the floor and the under tray, and how you guide there through those spaces through those areas of the car, seems to me more important than the sidepods. Of course, these kind of sidepods want to morph the air towards the rear of the car, produce more downforce from the rear wing, but it also poses a risk of overheating. Mercedes feel that it's not an issue. It also seems to me that a lot of people try to approach this area in different ways. So it seems to me that there are multiple concepts that could work in that area. It's just how the concept of the car really is for every team. But yeah, it's one of those things that Mercedes just pops up out of nowhere. DAS, for example, is something like that in 2020. When we saw the moving wheel and we were like, well, what's that? What does it do? I think the side pods are presumably good for their car, but I don't think it's like a blown diffuser or a double diffuser kind of scenario for the team.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. But do you think because they didn't run them in Barcelona, they run a more standard setup with the side pods? Do you think they could be deflecting? So, all the other teams are looking at this thinking, wow, they've found something here. They all go in and invest money into looking at what they found, when in reality, we could troop up next week and we'd be back to the Barcelona setup. It's all so up in the air, but fundamentally the car looks different, and I kind of like the fact that it looks different. I don't want all the Formula One teams to come up to the first race in Bahrain and have the same look with just different liveries. So it's exciting, but as Dimitris said, I can't really see it being that much of a radical improvement. But time will tell.
Yeah, I think it's just that obviously there was a quick debate at the beginning as to whether it was legal or not legal that Mercedes had invented or just basically not put any side pods on whatsoever. But as you say, if Christian Horner says they're legal, they are definitely legal, because if everyone's going to fight them, he is. But yeah, it is interesting. I think particularly with the new sort of ground effect thing that they're going for. I suppose the main thing that you need to look at is the floor, and particularly the porpoising, which seems to have gone on. That is a massive deal, I think, particularly because with day 2 of the Bahrain test, there's been a video of Pierre Gasly, I think, and his head is just bobbing up and down quite aggressively, which is not going to be fun for a 2-hour race, I imagine. Have you got any thoughts on how that might be solved at all, or if they're going to be able to do anything about that during the season?
Wow, that's a very technical question. I think Dimitris wouldn't be much better answering that. But I know Mercedes have said they put some sort of bar in there somewhere, I guess down the middle, to stop it. One of the videos earlier on, he literally looked like a headbanger. I mean, I don't know how you'd cope with that. How you wouldn't be able to, if the car started doing that randomly during a race, if something came off the car that made brought back that problem, they just wouldn't be able to continue. But as I say, Dimitris will know much more about that. He's much more technically minded than I am.
Well, it is an issue that we, kind of expected in terms of, we return to ground effect. So some of the side effects of that is porpoising. It's a term used back in the 1970s. It's not like we're not familiar with it. One of the, methods that we could actually try and see if we can mitigate the issue is rising the ride height a bit. During day 2 of testing in Bahrain, all of the teams tried to do that. They said, okay, we're going to try to race our cars a bit more higher than we would, because the whole point of ground effect is being as low as possible. Rake doesn't exist anymore, as it was with the previous regulations. It seemed to work. It seemed to actually be somehow efficient in solving that issue, but it's not preferable by any team because you just lose performance. The other thing that they could do is strengthening the floors a bit, so as they don't flex as much. And they tried that with some stays, some little wires, metallic wires that connect the floor to the rear of the car, so the floor doesn't flex as much. And the final thing that they could do is actually implementing active suspension systems. which is one of the few suggestions that were made back in the day during the whole discussion about the new regulations, that were thrown out of the video pretty quickly. No one actually thought that it was useful or cost effective. It was just too much for any team to handle, to of course put through R&D and then implement. But it would solve that issue because the active suspension would be programmed when porpoising happens to actually a bit rise the ride height, keep the car stable so you don't have that up and down movement. But that would happen. So I theorize that F1 will try to say, you know what, there's going to be a standard solution for it. We're not going to leave it up to the teams in order to solve it, because it becomes a safety issue at one point. It's not just a performance issue. It's not just an issue for the driver's head and, he maybe feel ill or not. That porpoising effect is a safety issue. And Bahrain is a very bumpy track, and we see it in full effect. But yeah, it's one of those things that you can't simulate, so you have to see how you make it better on track.
Is there a minimum ride height? Do you know? I would have thought there's a minimum ride height.
Yeah,
so they could. The FIA could raise that, couldn't they? And then all teams, instead of 5 centimeters, it goes to 7 centimeters across the board.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. You really put a very good question to me, and I don't have a concrete answer to give you.
I'll Google it.
I'll just Google the sporting regulations and try to figure out which would be. Go there. Yeah, I will. No, I will. No, not now, but I can do that just for future references. Yeah, that could be a solution. That's why I say the FIA and F1 will try and put a standardized solution. They will not leave it up to the teams, because each team will try to mitigate the issue in a different way. So if one team tries to strengthen the floor and another one tries to rise the height of the car, it's not the same. The one team will just get a new floor and the other team will lose performance. So, you have to balance it out a bit.
Yeah.
That'd be very interesting to see what happens throughout the season then, see if they get to a point where they actually decide to standardize it, or if the teams come up with something innovative, or we will see. But that moves us nicely on to the new regulations and the tyres and things, because this year we do have 18-inch tyres, 18-inch wheels, and we do have the lovely new sexy regulations, which look fantastic on the cars at the moment. I hope they bring us new racing. The aim is, exciting racing. The aim is for the cars to be able to get a bit closer. We did have a small taste of that, I think, with Alonso and Stroll, didn't we? Yesterday, day one of testing at Bahrain. They had a little go at it. That was great. It was exciting for us. What do we think, guys? I'm personally very excited to see what they'll bring, but what do you guys think?
Well, I think that the new tires are there to help with two things. One is less degradation, hopefully, and two is to be more to be closer to the real road racing road going wheels, the wheels that we use on our cars. Pirelli was really keen on that because they want to promote their products. I've spoken to Mario Isola a few times about the new regulations and the new tires. And he seems to be very confident about the first part of the change, the degradation. He believes, he says, not believes, he sees in the simulations that degradation is lower with the new tires, and with the new cars you're going to be able to push more, not being afraid of actually having to maybe save 10 or 15 laps and then go full throttle for like 5 laps in order to perform an overtake or whatever, and then just having no tires left on your car and having to pit. This is not going to be the case anymore, presumably. But during the morning session of day 2 in Bahrain, okay, really high temperatures, I'll give Pirelli that. Both Leclerc and Ocon, I think Ocon, did a race simulation. Not really representative, they just did it with, I think, C2 and C3, the two C2 and C3 compounds. and both of them, you could see a massive drop off on their race pace. They were lapping in 139, 139.2, and after 15, 20 laps, 144, which was really weird. It doesn't seem like they work, but Pirelli says they provide less degradation, so we will see.
They also raced a prototype tyre today. I think George Russell, Nicholas Latifi, and I think one of the Alfa Romeos did as well. I don't know what that tyre was, but yeah, 18 inches is a big tyre, isn't it? I mean, that's you'd be happy with that on your car.
Yeah.
And as you say, Pirelli want to push their P0 brand. So yeah, it all makes sense. I can see what they're doing. It's going to be interesting seeing the airflow over those. We'd like to see some graphics of that, not just with the high vis paint. But yeah, it's all good. It's all shaking up the system, isn't it? It's all all new, so exciting.
Yeah. So for those listening, watching who are Formula 2 fans and Formula 3 fans, they will have seen it previously because they've been using it, I think, for the last couple of years. So they will have seen the tyres, but because it's with the new regulations, they're all supposed to be working in tandem now. So it will be interesting to see what happens when they're in sort of full race conditions, because they've done race simulations, but it will never be, we won't really find out until the first race how they actually perform on race day. So it's interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how they're going to work and seeing if the drivers can actually push a lot harder in those stints before they do their pit stop, even if it is only that one pit stop during the race.
Lewis tyres will still be going off. Oh no, my tyres are going off. You've done 59 laps on them.
Definitely. Yeah, that'll never change.
No.
Speaking of changes, that was smooth. Speaking of changes, we've had a changeover at Haas. Now, with everything going on in the Ukraine, there's obviously been some difficult situations with Russia, a lot of sanctions put in, and that means that Mazepin has lost his contract. It was terminated. And we've had Kevin Magnussen has made a return to Formula One. Yay. I don't know about anybody else. I'm very, very excited. Yes, we're here for this. I'm very much excited to see how Schumacher will perform against an experienced driver and to see what K-Mag can do in that Haas. Anybody else excited? I definitely am, but anybody else?
Oh, I'm really excited. I mean, it's a little bit of the Kimi Räikkönen. Losing both of those was hard because personality-wise, they did shine out. And Kevin put in some good laps today. I think he did 39 laps. His best was 136.505. So that landed him in what? He was about halfway. But at one stage, he was right at the top of the list, wasn't he? So I'd like
he finished. That, huh? He finished at the top of the list, actually.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. They did the 1 hour extra to mitigate the loss of the morning session on day one. Oh, and he just stopped the timesheet. The legend.
I didn't think they were going to get that. So they actually got the hour back.
Kevin did it and he delivered.
Lovely. It's, as Jess said, it's going to be really interesting, the battle between him and Mick. It gives us a team with two sons of Formula One drivers in it. I'm sure that's happened before. Oh no, it has happened before. Jack Villeneuve and Damon Hill, both sons of Formula One drivers. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic.
Well, I think Kevin, as Simon said, I completely agree, is a personality in F1. He's a character in F1. Infamous for his quote and comeback to Nico Hülkenberg. But he's like that. I had the privilege, because it is a privilege to talk with an F1 driver. I had the privilege to talk with him in Austria in 2020 during his final season. Well, as of now, it's not the final season, but then it was the final season with Haas, the start of it. And I asked him a pretty simple question. One of those that you just get to get the headline out of a driver, it's not like journalistic enough. It's not informative enough. The question was, do you think you are an aggressive driver, or are you just yourself? Are you aggressive in nature? And he said both. he's just like that. He's an amazing talent, in my opinion. Tremendously talented driver. You're not by accident a McLaren academy driver, and you don't get to drive for one of the best teams in F1 for no reason. He spent a lot of time in the midfield. He knows what's up in that kind of part of the grid, and yeah, I think he can be a mentor to Mick as well, and he can be a measuring stick for Mick Schumacher, because Nikita Mazepin was not someone that Mick could easily be challenged by. He pretty easily defeated him. Now Kevin is not going to be as easy to beat as Nikita was.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how he stacks up. And as you say, I hadn't even gone through my brain that he was the son of a Formula One driver. I don't know why. It should have done, but it didn't. I was just excited that he's back.
That's my age.
I'm just just excited to see him back. I'm excited to see what he can do in the car, because I personally, when he left, I was very sad that he left, because I think he's a good driver. As you say, he's very talented, and I'm excited to see what he can do and how he can push Mick in that car, because Mick Schumacher is the future. He is one of the future drivers, and we will see what he can do. But moving on to the Formula One world champion, Max Verstappen. Now, we have a new defending world champion this year, for a change. I love Lewis, but we have a new champion. We have a new champion, and it'll be interesting to see what he does in that Red Bull, because over testing, we can't take testing times and stuff, but over testing, Red Bull have not been the quickest, not been slow or anything, but they've not been the quickest. They've sort of been, maybe I would say, second, third-ish, hovering maybe around fourth, depending on the day, depending on the fuel runs, I guess. But it'll be interesting to see what he does in that car. Do we think Red Bull will give him enough this year, or do we think Red Bull will be on the chase all year?
Well, I think that Red Bull is a team that knows how to produce a good car on the cusp of changing rules, changing regulations. Andre Newey is a very good and talented, charismatic person on that aspect. He really knows how to make the most out of those situations. I think this applies to Mercedes as well. They were on a very brutal title fight last year, both of them. So I think most of the resources in last year were on the 2021 car, trying to make it better. I think Red Bull spent a lot of time trying to, fix its rear wing. So I think they lost time with the 2022 car. It seems like a fast car. I don't think it's very stable right now. As of now, we haven't seen any big upgrades on the RB18, but they say that they will bring some during the last day of the test and on the Bahrain Grand Prix itself. I think Max, if you give him an inch, he will take a mile. I'm just saying, measuring for our UK peeps. If you give him a centimeter, he will get a meter. So even if Red Bull is not the fastest car, if it is like second or third fastest, and he sees an opportunity, he will get it. He will be, I hope, a very good reigning world champion, even if he loses the title this year.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think Mercedes had their eye off the ball at the start of 2021, thinking, we've got this, we'll develop our 2022 car, and then had to kind of take a step back to develop the 2021 car. So I'm not sure there's, a lot of difference between the stages Red Bull and Mercedes are at. Going back to the first question, really at the start of the show, it's whether Ferrari, because they weren't in a title battle, have they genuinely come up with the goods this year, or will they flatter to deceive? Will they do their usual, over passionate and make mistakes? It's a whole new formula, really. I mean, we can see with the Haas, it looks a much better car as well. So, yeah, Red Bull, they'll definitely be there or thereabouts. Whether they'll be able to retain, I'm not so sure. I think that Lewis has really got, really everything behind him now. He's really, up for the job. He wants that 8th title. He feels like he's been robbed and he's going to go for it. I don't think he'll be giving way in corners like he did last year. So, I think Max is going to have his hands full this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see and think about Lewis and the fight back. He's normally quite good under pressure, although it depends on the amount of pressure, I guess, according to last year. But now he's got a new teammate in George Russell. We have already discussed this in a previous podcast, but just before we move on to the very final bit, I just thought it was worth giving him a mention. Do we think it's going to be a tight battle between the two teammates, or are we thinking that it might not be this year, it might be next year or the year after when Russell's got a bit more of a footing in Mercedes?
I think, as you said, I think this year he'll want to bed into the team. He's the young guy. He's got time on his hands. He could be at that Mercedes for another 10 years. If he plays his cards right, he supports, I think he'll play a supporting role this year. He's probably been told, this year you support Lewis, and, going forward, you'll have more of an open page, and you'll be able to go racing properly. I'm sure he will race properly, don't get me wrong. I just don't think, given the opportunity, if it's a point situation and they need Lewis to take those points, he'll have to do what Bottas did and pull over.
Well, that's a pretty possible scenario. I think that Russell's seen all these young drivers getting huge contracts. Max got his extension, Norris, Leclerc. Every single young driver, Carlos Sainz will get an extension as well with Ferrari. He sees that as an opportunity to stay with the team for the long, to play the long game. And I mean, Lewis Hamilton is one of the best drivers ever. He is one of the best drivers on the current grid. I'm sure that if he has the opportunity to beat him on occasion, he will. But it's going to be more difficult to do it actually. And if he does beat him, I will agree with Simon. Mercedes will just say, you know what? Try to be more supportive this year. And he will understand. He will play the long game. And also he knows Toto Wolff, he knows the team. So maybe there is a better communication than it was with Valtteri, who was promised maybe a title fight, a title run, and that didn't pan out.
I don't think Valtteri, as good as a driver he was, and he is an excellent driver, I don't think he had that little bit extra to be able to take it to Lewis in the way that Nico Rosberg did. I think George will be very different. I think George will in time be able to take it to Lewis. But Lewis is a bit like a Roger Federer or a Nadal, or in footballing terms, or Ronaldo. He's getting older, but he seems to be defying that age, and seems to be still getting better and stronger. So I think that could be the only obstacle to George winning races and championships.
Yeah, I agree with you both. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I think, for this year in particular, it'll be a case of Russell just playing more of a supportive role, and then at the end of the day, Mercedes know he is the future. He will be the one competing with Max in the next several years to come, decade probably. So maybe we'll see. But I think it'll be interesting to see what happens throughout the year. So just before we end, I just want a prediction from you guys. Who do we think is going to be the top 3 at the end of the championship? I know it's a big ask, but the top 3. Personally, I'm going to say Lewis, Sainz, and then Max. Bit of an odd one. I personally think Sainz will do slightly better in that Ferrari than Leclerc. Leclerc will still be good. I reckon he'll be 4th, but I think Sainz might do slightly better. Big up Adam Wheeler. He's probably listening and going, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, taking notes.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Leclerc, Max, Lewis. It's my top 3.
Right. I think I'm going to go very similar to Jess. I'm going to go Lewis, because I just think, at the end of last season, everything's behind him. He just wants to go for it. So I think it will be Lewis. I think it will be Carlos Sainz. I think Carlos is actually the better driver out of the 2 Ferraris. I know a lot of people don't, but I do. And I think Max will probably come in 3rd. So I think depending on how good that Red Bull is, if not Max, it will be George.
Mhm.
It could go either way, but please don't play this back at the end of the season.
We're going to now, right?
you're gonna save this, and we're gonna absolutely
yeah.
But
we'll find out.
I think Haas will be the surprise package, and Alex Albon as well to shine.
Wow. Any extras, Dimitris?
Albon will flop. Haas will be disappointment. No, I'm joking. No. We're not playing the ESPN card when we contradict each other for views. I think Haas will be better. I hope it will be better. And from the driver's perspective, other than the top guys, I'm really keen on seeing how Esteban Ocon will fare with Fernando Alonso for this season, even if they don't have a competitive package for the championship. I want to see Esteban going ahead Fernando. I don't know. I think it will happen. It could happen.
And Alpine were the team that said they were concentrating on 2022 from how far back?
Yeah.
They said this was going to be their season. That's why Alonso came back. So that's not good. Not good so far, anyway.
So let us know your predictions for the season. Who do you think will come out on top? Do you think the new regulations will make it more exciting? Who's your top three? Who's going to be a shocking prediction? Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for listening or watching on YouTube. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, as well as like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, or visit us on www.thepitcrewonline.net. A special thanks to Simon and Dimitris. Where can we find you guys on social media?
I'm at F1 Taxi on Twitter.
And I'm at Dimitris_Bizas on Twitter.
Lovely. And you will find me on Twitter at Team Motorsport Girl. And as always, thank you very much for listening, and we will see you out on track.